What's up, guys? It's Lord Both here with another video, and there are, I think, 3 or 4 episodes of the Star Wars show Skeleton Crew out now. I watched about the first 2 episodes, and I can honestly say it's meh. It's alright. It's a kid's story. It's very, very inspired by something like The Goonies. They kind of fall into the basic traps of writing live-action kids' TV, though, where they make the kids intentionally dumb. This is what happens when you have people who typically aren't parents write television for kids. They always make kids, more dumb than they actually are. I don't know why. The only kid in the show of any kind of adequate intelligence, of course, are the girls. And we can probably guess why they did that. But even then, they make some fool judgment decisions that most kids probably wouldn't make. And again, that's not blaming the kids, the actors, for any of that. The kids acting is fine. It's blaming the writers. They don't know how to write for children. But the real story here is in the viewership, because we have a lot of people talking about how this show is fairly well liked by the people watching it. This comes to us from Forbes. Skeleton Crew is now the best reviewed Disney Star Wars project besides Andor. And you can see here, you got the 95, 86 critics score and audience score. So people watching this show, they do like it. And it's not anything offensive or really pushing any kind of agenda. It's just, the brand of Star Wars has been so tarnished and people care so little about Star Wars that the other thing that this project has in common with Andor is that nobody's watching it. This comes to us from a site called the Jedi Temple Archives. That's right, I had to go to a site called the Jedi Temple Archives to find viewership numbers on Star Wars Skeleton Crew, because that's how little people are reporting it. They say here, while we still have to wait a while for Nielsen to include Skeleton Crew on their streaming charts, newcomer Luminant have updated their streaming charts with data from last week, only yesterday, which means episode 3 of Skeleton Crew is included in the dataset. And it does not look good for the latest Star Wars series. Just like last week, Skeleton Crew failed to even make it into the Luminant top 10 streaming charts for original shows. This in week 2 with episode 3 added. And the number 10 entry only has 289 million minutes streamed. Skeleton Crew could not even beat that. This is especially bad since the, until now, least watched live-action Star Wars series, The Acolyte, had 380.5 million minutes on the Luminant streaming charts in week 2 with a comparable overall runtime, and it was the number 6 show overall in its second week. Now, of course, there were probably different things on during that time period, and we have to consider that Acolyte's demographics for who they want watching the show are probably a little different, even though they are both Star Wars. So there is some kind of fluctuation there in terms of audience and what else was on. But even considering that, that's a really bad statistic. This project, which is light years better than the Acolyte, I'll tell you that, can't even do Acolyte numbers in terms of minutes watched. Earlier this week, Forbes posted the budget for the show, and it's $136 million, which is cheaper than the Acolyte, but actually more expensive than The Mandalorian, and also more expensive than Obi-Wan Kenobi. And while I do have to tell you, you definitely see more of the budget on screen than, say, The Acolyte, which seemed like a theater production level show, I really don't know where they put the $200 to $250 million budget that they had. The fact that they spent more money on this than The Mandalorian, which is their bread and butter show, that's the most successful thing they've probably done, or Obi-Wan Kenobi, which you think would have been a slam dunk for Disney. It was only $90 million in terms of its initial budget, and they could have made an Obi-Wan Kenobi show easily. There's many different directions they could have taken that show, and they took the direction that people least probably predicted or wanted. And quite honestly, they just made certain parts of the show silly. While Skeleton Crew is about children, Obi-Wan Kenobi treated the audience like we were children. So even then, the fact that they spent $136 million on this thing and it's getting this bad numbers, when they could have easily put more money into productions that actually would have brought them in more numbers, and would have potentially saved their reputation, so we're not in this kind of state right now, it's really bad. It's a really bad statistic. The point here is that Star Wars has become such a tarnished brand and associated with a low-quality, agenda-pushing product that nobody even wants to give it the time of day. Even when they release something that is alright. Alright just isn't good enough anymore. Alright is good enough when you're at the high point of your popularity and when people are consistently buying your product because the products you're putting out have been consistently good. It is the exact opposite for Lucasfilm and Star Wars, and it's why the show is destined to fail. I feel like this show was also supposed to be a one-off, one-season show anyway. It definitely probably won't get a second season, and it's going to be chalked up as yet another in the long line of failures for Lucasfilm. But those are just my thoughts on all this. If you have your own thoughts, go and leave them in the comments. If you like this video, go and like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like this video, I appreciate you watching all of it, and we'll talk to you again later.